It's time for Reason.
5 states last night had their primaries, and the blue wave is not happening. The excitement, the activism, and right now the Republicans would have been able to maintain every single one of their seats in the 5 states, whether it was a House seat, whether it was a Senate seat, or whether it was the governorship or anything else locally that may have happened in those states. Republicans would have maintained every single one of them. Where's the blue wave, baby? Where is it? We're not seeing it.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I'll get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
That's what I'm talking about. Welcome into the Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation here in Wichita, Kansas on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM, simulcasting as well on KGPT TV, channel 2610. Good morning, what's up? Welcome into the Voice of Reason. It is a Wednesday, the greatest day of the week. We are finally into, if you want to call it hump day, the day before Friday. To the light at the end of the tunnel, whatever you want to call it. Let's enjoy it. Let's carpe diem all over this place and make it a good one. What do you say? 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. We have a lot to get to today. A lot of great guests as well. Coming up in an hour from now, just about an hour from now, 7:30, we will be having Sedgwick County Commissioner Jim Howell, as we do every single week at 7:30. And in the 8 o'clock hour, we'll get him back on the program, Republican gubernatorial candidate Mr. Jim Barnett, as he's been campaigning and talking and looking for that primary race coming up in just a few months. We'll look forward to chatting with Jim Barnett coming up at 8 o'clock today. So lots to get to. It's open lines to you as well, 316-721-8255. We are broadcasting on Facebook Live, facebook.com/1480 KQAM, shared all over Facebook as well, so you can pretty much find it everywhere. Just go on there, like it, share it, leave a comment, ask a question. Let's blow this bad boy up. Let's break the Facebook algorithms and have a little fun today. Also on Twitter at Hoosier Reason. Before we go anywhere else, this is, of course, the biggest news that everybody's going to be talking about today, so we might as well address it and get your thoughts on this as well. But North Korea, oh my gosh, they've threatened to pull out of the summit. Oh, man. I'm not quite sure what we will have to do with this news. I'm not quite sure how we could ever survive this kind of news. This is insanity. This is craziness of the fact that the Kim Jong-un actually threatened. Now, he has not done it yet. He's threatened to pull out of the summit. Oh, man. And it's all because the military practices, North Korea's reportedly pulled out because of the South Korea-U.S. military drills. According to South Korean news agency Yonhap News, North Korea said it is canceling high-level talks planned for later in the day. North Korean Central News Agency said Max Thunder drills between South Korean and U.S. Air Forces are rehearsal for invasion of the North and a provocation amid warning the meetings and inter-Korean ties. The high-level talks were meant to take place on the south side of the Truce Village to discuss the follow-up measures of the two Korean leaders' summits last month. They canceled that meeting and potentially canceling all of these summits. Look, this is a dictator we're still working with. I don't know if we've forgotten this fact or not yet, but this is a dictator that we're dealing with, and he does not like who he's actually having to deal with right now. And we again bring up the question of why he's doing this in the first place. Is it because he's getting some goodies out of this? If you remember, the reason that they've always threatened these things over the last 30 years or so, was because they get goodies out of it. They keep their silence. They get some nice little shipments of agriculture or food or goodies or whatever they want, and we send it to them, and then they stay at bay, and they're happy and healthy, and they just go about their business. And then they start to run out, and they don't like it, or the trade runs out, or the deal and the contract runs out, so they end up throwing a fit again, and then we start it all over. This time, we're saying, like Trump being the negotiator that he actually is, says, wait a second, if we're going to give you goodies, then you have to do something for us. And it's going to be pretty drastic because we're sick and tired of supporting a dictatorial type of country to where your people are suffering, you're enjoying, little rocket man, and all your people are struggling to be able to, survive. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to end the conflict. You're going to get rid of you're going to denuclearize yourself and start working with us on that front. You're going to become an ally, per se, not necessarily an ally because you are a dictator and we're not going to work with you in that sense, but you are going to end a lot of these conflicts. That's it. So he's starting to do that. He doesn't like this. He doesn't want to do this. If he did, he would have done it as soon as he got into office when his father passed away and he took over. Kim Jong-il, remember him? He doesn't want to do this. He's being forced. We have some type of leverage over this guy, and that's the only reason why he's going about this. That's the only reason. And we got to remember that. And he's going to try and find excuses. He's going to try and step out of this. He's going to try and find ways to make excuses to not have to do this. It's expected. And if we're going to sit here and we're going to panic every time that they make a comment, every time that something happens, and then the media is in a frenzy of, oh, look at that, Donald Trump doesn't know how to take care of the situation. Donald Trump doesn't know what he's actually doing. This is absurd. Let it ride out. Trump knows what he's doing. Mike Pompeo knows what he's doing. Nikki Haley knows what she's doing. General Mattis sure as hell knows what he's doing, and he ain't going to take any crap. Let it ride. It's almost like the stock market where we look at every hour, every half hour at the market. Oh, it ticked up a point. Oh, it ticked down a point. Oh, it ticked up a point. Oh, it ticked down a point. Oh, my gosh. When we just need to calm down, widen the horizons a little bit, look at the broad spectrum, and then see what's actually happening. Calm down. I guess that's what happens when you get 24-hour news media and news outlets, right? Because everybody wants to look at it in the time at the moment as we go in second by second, minute by minute. And as soon as something happens, then, oh, it's time to panic. And that's not the time to do so. It's going to be all right. It's going to be all right. Look, we still need to be working with South Korea because they are a capitalist nation. We still have an ally in South Korea, and the U.S. and South Korea needs to work on our drills, not only for North Korea, but for whatever may happen in that entire region. And if North Korea doesn't like that, then oh well. Because they need to understand, look, if this is going to happen, if this deal is going to happen, this is not going to be give Kim Jong-un in North Korea whatever they want to in order for them to be happy just to make a deal so that way we can say we got a deal. That's not how deals work, or not how deals should work. If they're legit, if they're actually impactful, if they're actually substantial, then it's not how they work just to do whatever it takes to make it happen just so we have the success of quote-unquote making it happen. And I don't think Donald Trump's like that. He wants to make a deal, but he wants it to be substantial because he actually does care about more than just his legacy. He actually cares about what's right and what needs to be done. And that's what he's working on. So if it's just going to be a deal by giving them whatever they want to, just to say, hey, we did it, baby, all right, then it's not going to happen. Mike Pompeo, I don't think, would allow that to happen. I don't think that we would do this just for the facade of saying, hey, look at this. We made a deal happen. You should be proud of us and pat us on the back. This is what's going to happen. If we're truly going to end the conflict, we need to sit down with Little Rocket Man, and yes, I still want to use that term because I think it's hysterical, sit down with Kim Jong-un and say, listen, you are not liked around the world. We don't like you. You do terrible things to your nation. You're a dummy when it comes to running your nation. You do not have the equipment to build a nuclear arsenal. It's not going to happen. Here's what you're going to do. If you want any bit of our resources, if you want any bit of our trade, if you want to actually somewhat try to pretend to feed your population, here's what's going to happen. You will end the conflict. You will step across that line to the southern part of Korea. You will work with the president, Moon Jae-in, I think his name was, the president of South Korea. You will work with them. You will denuclearize yourself, and you will start being a little bit nicer to us. That's what's going to happen. We still do not trust you, which is why we're going to do this in baby steps, and we're going to trust but verify everything that you say and everything that you do. We're going to go through this process. And we will continue military operations with South Korea because we don't know what you're up to, because you're not going to try and pull the wool over our eyes and then do something stupid after we let our guard down. It's not going to happen. So, as you know, and we've been enemies for a very long time, we're going to continue our thing. You can continue to do your thing, but you will start opening up a little bit more and playing a little bit nicer with us in the region. That's what's going to happen. And then if you allow us to do all of that, then we will continue to move forward with this. And then once we go to this summit and we actually sit down and we meet, then we can start working towards real peace and real security, and we can actually start doing things substantial. But until then, we don't trust you, we don't like you, and we're going to continue to go about our thing, and we're going to keep you isolated because you need to show the effort. You do, not us. You do. You need to show the effort. And I guarantee you, if we use that kind of mentality, like, I don't know, the adult talking to the child, then it might actually be able to work. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. And I'm okay with that. But we need to use that type of mentality with them. We can't say, look, this is truly, honestly, really the example of the parent talking to the child. He is a child. He grew up, what was it, in London, in the UK, where he went to schooling, and he came back, and he hates America, and he took over for his daddy, and he's been running it because his family's been in there in the leadership for, 3 or 4 generations now, and that's just the way it's been. And he's not had anyone in his entire life ever tell him no. He's gotten everything that he's wanted his entire life because he's quote-unquote royalty and a dictator. And that's it. He's a tyrant. He is a child. And he's what? He's like my age or a little bit older. He's ridiculously young. And we need to treat him like a child. He is inferior when it comes to his control. He is inferior when it comes to his power. He's inferior when it comes to his military. He's inferior when it comes to his economy. He's inferior when it comes to all around compared to the United States and many other nations that are surrounding him. He is the child. We are the adults, and let's treat him like that. And if he's good enough to actually mature enough to grow and actually understand that situation, then we can actually get somewhere. If not, then oh well. That's the way we have to go. We have some calls on the line. Stay here. Lots to get to today. This is The Voice of Reason.
Ace Hardware of Mays.
Hey, welcome back into The Voice of Reason, 24 minutes past the hour. Welcome in. Happy Wednesday. Better than a cup of coffee, a shot of espresso, even an energy drink. Let's get you pumped up, ready to go for the day. I love it. We have a little bit too much fun. That's enough of my take on North Korea. I don't really care. I mean, it's important and I do care, but, I mean, come on. You're just a punk kid in Wichita, Kansas. What do you know about North Korea? Let me just say this. I trust Mike Pompeo. I trust President Trump way more than really any other administration that potentially could be in there right now. There are a couple that I think could have done a great job as well, but I think Donald Trump is doing a fantastic job with it. We just cannot look at the day-by-day, hour-by-hour comments that are made because it's going to be so wobbly and so shaky and everybody's going to be panicky. Let's just sit back, let it ride out. And if it's meant to be, it's going to be meant to be. And if it does, we've already had, by the way, 5 or 6 governors throughout the state, throughout the country, including our very own Governor Jeff Colyer, signing a petition saying that Donald Trump should receive the Nobel Peace Prize because of all this, and even just the fact that we're as far as we are along with the peace negotiations in the Korean region. So right there shows that we're doing something positive, and we've really advanced farther than we ever had before on this subject, which is something that we should already be proud of. But of course, the progressives and the liberals are never going to give him credit for it. They're never going to say that he did a good job on this. They're never going to say that he actually deserves any type of credit for this, because it's always going to be about, somebody else and how they did it for him, and they loosened the jar for him even though you opened up the lid. Really? 316-721-8255. Let's go to the phones. Line number 1. Good morning. What's your name?
My name is Eddie.
Good morning, Eddie. How are you, sir?
Oh, I'm fine. I trust President Trump because he's no fool.
Sure.
And I trust Pompeo. He's no fool.
Absolutely.
But the deal of it is, it's one of these classic things where you have a great big bully, and the bully knows it's just going to get the crap kicked out of him. And so suddenly he's really a nice guy.
Sure.
And then he relaxes for a little bit. And after he relaxes a little bit, then he gets his nerve back up. And then he wants to be the great big bully again.
He feels empowered again. It's kind of like one of those guys where you want to fight, but you don't really want to fight, so you tell your friends to hold you back while you act like you're trying to break through their grip to go and fight somebody. That's kind of like what Kim Jong-un's doing right now. Is he's saying, hold on, hold me back a little bit. Where I'm saying, yeah, I want to play nice, but then come at me. Don't you guys try your military operations? Don't you try this because I'm going to come get you? But I'm going to threaten to pull out of these deals. But then it doesn't actually happen. He just throws his little temper tantrum and then he's fine.
The deal of it is, this is exactly what I would do. First of all, I'd carpet bomb the whole goddamn country, okay? Seriously, I really would. Now, I want to try to save the civilians because I have a kind heart.
Sure.
And that's what but the deal of it is, I hope that Trump will do this. If this guy wants to play a game, don't play a game with Donald Trump. Because if he does, Donald Trump, if you want to see I don't think he'll do military action against him, but I think he will empower South Korea so much.
Sure.
We will be sending over bombers over there on standby. We will have our submarines over there on standby. Listen, you're talking about a guy that killed his own relatives just for the hell of it, just for power.
Sure.
No, exactly. Why should we believe a word?
Exactly, and that's got to be the tough talks we have. Is saying that we don't trust you. We know what you've done in the past. We know how much you despise us. We know just recently how many missiles you've tried to test launch to try and scare us, to threaten to fire off weapons towards our western coast. We don't trust you, and we're going to continue our military operations. And if you don't like that, that's too bad. So sad. We're going to continue doing our thing. You need to show us the sign of faith that you are actually going to play nice with us, and it's going to take a long time to even build a little bit of trust because we would like this to happen, but we don't want it under a false pretense to where we get caught with our pants down, so to speak, and you're going to take advantage of us.
This is the first time that we've actually had the United States president stand up to him. Right. Obama was a complete joke. He goes around with knee pads on, bowing down in front of every...
Oh, come on. Didn't he look all tough with his bicycle helmet on? Come on. Come on. Anyway, seriously, if it turns out to be fact, all right, it's not going to be okay. I'd still have my missiles aimed right at North Korea. Sure.
But if it's not, let's really show him what really mean SOBs we are, and we can be. That's the only way you're going to win a war. You can't win a war if you're going to pussyfoot around.
Exactly.
And believe it.
I completely
agree. Love you, Andy. You take care, and America is strong, and we are kick-ass, absolutely, period.
I love it. America right there, my friend. Eddie, I appreciate the call very much so. Love it. 316-721-8255, 316-721. No, you're right. That's what we have to do. We have to show our toughness. We really have to. When you meet a bully, the only thing to do when you meet a bully is to show the bully that you have strength. That you have to show that you have. That's what you have to do. Don't we teach our children that, to stand up to the bully? At least we should be, not cowering and then doing whatever the bully tells you to and then running and telling somebody else. Because if we have that mentality as a nation, then we would be in a lot of trouble. We're supposed to stand up to the bully to show them that we're not going to be bullied around, and then they leave us alone. It's a really crazy, wild concept. That's what we're supposed to be doing, right? That's what we do. It's going to happen. Because you're right, we this time cannot just, we're going to be in a conflict, but then pass a whole bunch of regulations to not really allow the conflict to actually happen or us to succeed because Congress is going to fail it for us and lose the war for us, sort of thing. No, if you're going to mess with us, then you're going to get the brute strength of what America actually can have. Bottom of the hour news coming up, lots more to get to. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
Giving the libs one dose of sanity at a time.
I'm not being aggressive, I'm being dominant.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Hey, welcome back into the Voice of Reason, making it happen today on a Wednesday morning. Appreciate you hanging out with us. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join into the program, we'll shift gears a little bit here away from North Korea. You still want to chime in on that, you're more than welcome to do so. Comment on Facebook Live. Trump could cure cancer, and the media would still parade about the poor unemployed doctors and how terrible Trump is for actually doing so, and that he actually didn't do that, that it was actually Barack Obama from prior to, right? That's what they actually try and claim. It's true. It's true. We could actually have a true summit. Let's say the summit goes through, and we could actually have a peace-signed contract. Some type of saying that we're going to end this conflict between North and South Korea. We're going to end it. It's going to be done. It's going to be over. And both the leaders come back and say, yeah, you know what? Donald Trump kind of made this happen. South Korea says, yeah, you know, they actually helped. North Korea says, yeah, they bullied us into it. It was a terrible thing. But yet it was done. They still wouldn't give him the Nobel Peace Prize. Barack Obama got into office. He didn't do a damn thing in the first year, and they gave him a Nobel Peace Prize because he's going to be the progressive that ends all the conflicts, that brings us home, and it is the savior to America. Oh, he goes around and apologizes for who we are and what all we've done. And they gave him the Nobel Peace Prize. Didn't do anything, and still didn't end the conflicts, by the way, after that. Donald Trump ends a conflict, and they still won't give it to him. So you're right. The media's not going to like him. They're never going to support him, and the progressives will never see the light when it comes to saying, oh, Donald Trump did something good. It's never going to happen that way. I don't know why. By the way, if you're watching the Facebook Live, you can see me look over here. All of a sudden, the sports guys over in the other studio all of a sudden just stop and go look at me. I don't know what that was all about. Those guys are nuts. Here on the local front, I don't know what they do on their show. It's kind of their own beast when they actually talk about their sports and stuff. Yeah, we'll try and get them over here. By the way, to talk a little bit maybe about the sports gambling thing that we talked about yesterday, get the sports perspective on that one. On the home front here in the state of Kansas, I do want to talk about that for a little bit. Governor Jeff Colyer came out with the Topeka Capital Journal. They reported on the top 100 moments as the boss. As you know, Governor Jeff Colyer taking the governorship really at the beginning of this year as Governor Sam Brownback stepped down, became the ambassador at large for international religious freedom under the Donald Trump administration. Another one moving on up to the Trump administration from the state of Kansas. That's a great success for us here in the state, and we should be very proud of that. But the top 100 moments as the boss, according to the Topeka Capital Journal. And we've done some really great things. And I got to say, Governor Jeff Colyer has done a great job with some transparency bills on the legislative branch and on the executive branch. I'd really like to see them on the judicial branch as well, but that's probably not going to happen. But here's what the story has to say. Governor Jeff Colyer pointed to work on abortion, education, and a leadership shuffle at the state's controversial Plagued Child Welfare Agency Friday on the list of accomplishments during the 100-day since replacing the Republican Sam Brownback. To demonstrate leadership skills and place a fresh face on executive branch ahead of the August 7th gubernatorial primary against Secretary of State Chris Kobach, Insurance Commissioner Ken Seltzer, and others. The governor's top 100 moments during his 3 months in charge was topped with opposition to funding a Planned Parenthood and demands for amendment of the Kansas Constitution to limit abortion rights. We have moved moved positively in that sense. I'd like to see more of that. And right now, the progressives here in the state, the blue wave that's coming. Everybody get prepared. It's the blue wave. Yeah. It's the blue wave. They are threatening to reverse a lot of this, but it's not going to happen because we are a very pro-life state in wanting to defend that mentality. And if let me tell you, even as progressives, if you try and run on a pro-abortion stance here in the state of Kansas, it's not going to work. It's just not going to happen very well at all. The Planned Parenthood and demands for amendment to the Kansas Constitution to limit abortion rights. He praised signing a bill expanding a state aid to public education by more than $500 million over 5 years ahead of the Kansas Supreme Court's assessment of the law's constitutionality. That's where I would disagree on a success. And that's okay. I mean, we can disagree. I don't agree with really anybody 100% on anything. And I didn't agree with Governor Sam Brownback on everything 110%. I don't agree with Governor Colyer 110%. If we get a new governor in there that's a Republican, I won't agree with them 110% all the time. It's not going to happen. And that was one where I know that he tried to put the stipulations in on where the money needs to go. But again, until the legislature actually has the power to delegate and micromanage where the money goes within the Department of Education, then we don't have any type of achievement goals, or we don't have any type of regulation, or we don't have any type of control on where the local school districts place the money. And we can encourage, we can stress the importance of, we can plead, we can beg, but until we actually have that authority, then we don't have any say on where that money goes. Now, with the assessment, and we'll talk with Governor Colyer hopefully very soon on some of the details of those requirements, because he wants graduation rates to be up. He wants test scores to be higher. He wants the opportunity and the resources to be where the students actually need them to be. And it's great. He's got his good intentions there. And I agree with that, and I like that. The fact of the matter is, though, is that other than encouraging, we really don't have any say on that unless we take control of that situation. And right now, we don't. Democrats and progressives, again, Republicans are not the ones that are letting your kids fail in education. It is the local school districts, which, by the way, local school districts predominantly run by liberal Democrat progressives, because they're the ones that get the money and they're not delegating it appropriately. Now, they're going to come back when we ask them and say, well, yeah, we can delegate the best we can, but we don't have a whole lot of money, and they're just not giving us enough money to do what we need to do with it. While you're seeing them hire on a third or fourth or fifth deputy superintendent, while you're seeing pay raises for administrators, while you're seeing maybe a slight raise when it comes to the teachers. And we've talked about this ad nauseum. We don't need to go down that road right now. But if we're going to ever change the process, if we're going to ever change the system, the only way to do it is to focus on the local school boards instead of the legislature and fight the state Supreme Court and the constitutionality of the equitability or the suitability when it comes to educational funding. We need to fix that. We need to change it. And unless we do those two things, everything else we do is not going to be worth anything. And increasing funding by $500+ million over the next few years, which cumulatively, when you actually add it on and say, all right, here's the base, which is, let's throw a number out there, $6 billion in the state, which is close too, by the way. So let's say $6 billion that we're spending on education this year. And then, oh, by the way, next year we're going to add on $200 million. So now it's $6.2 billion. Then that's the base now. So then the next year we're going to add on to that. Now it's going to be $6.4 billion. Then the next year it's going to be $6.6 billion. And it's going to add, and that's the base. And then you talk about increasing on top of that. Pretty soon we're going to be looking at $7 billion, $8 billion. Remember, the state of Kansas's entire state budget is only around $9 billion. We're already spending 54% of our entire budget in the state on public education. Where's the rest of the money going? It's split up into the other 90 some odd departments and agencies in the state. We need to remember this. It's cumulative. Why we gave them another penny in more money, I don't know. And what do they say? Well, that's a good start. We really wanted $2 billion. Just imagine that. It's unbelievable, the lunacy of these guys. So I don't see that as a success. Governor Colyer does, because he did put the stipulations in there. I would disagree with him on that front. Not to say that the other things that we haven't done aren't good things, but I would disagree with that one. And that's okay. We cannot settle and we cannot go backwards. We are going to keep the momentum up for these first 100 days. We continue to grow for our state and for the future of the state of Kansas. Now, House Minority Leader Jim Ward, by the way, who has stepped down from running for the governorship in the state of Kansas, said direction of the governor's office hasn't changed much since Brownback's resignation to serve President Donald Trump. The first 100 days of Governor Collier's time in office was just like the prior 6 years of Sam Brownback. The list is just more evident that Kansas will get 4 more years of Sam Brownback if we would elect a governor on his own right, like that. So, which I don't know why that's a shocker, by the way. I don't know why that's a big deal, because Governor Colyer was the lieutenant governor for Governor Sam Brownback, and they had kind of the same mindset. Now, a little bit different flavor on how to go about it, but they're really of the same mindset, the same philosophy, same ideas, which is why they work together as the governor and lieutenant governor. Crazy concept, right? But, of course, this is the campaign tactics of trying to demonize the Republicans who are running for the governorship for next year. Now, we have a big, hefty project in front of us as the voters, as the constituents, because the state of Kansas usually sways back and forth when it comes to every 8 years for the governorship between Republicans and Democrats. And for the first time in 2 decades, there's actually a Democrat primary for the governorship. And it's starting to wean itself off a little bit. But right now we have 3 solid candidates on the Democrat side. That is, of course, Laura Kelly and Carl Brewer, the former mayor of Wichita here, and Josh Schwade. And all 3 of them, for what I've heard at least, are doing relatively well when it comes to their campaigns and the support that they have from the Democrat side. The question is, which one's actually going to be able to run away with it in the primary, and are they going to be able to beat the Republican? There's so many different ways that this could go when it comes to the governorship and the general election. And I'm glad they're having a midterm and having a primary. I'm really glad the Democrats have a few different candidates because I want themselves to beat each other up a little bit. I don't know if they will. I haven't really heard any trash talk on each side yet. I haven't really heard them go after each other yet, but I really hope they beat each other up because Republicans, we do a fantastic job of doing that. And I'm glad we do. We beat each other up when it comes to the primaries by fighting on ideas, bickering about what we stand for, bickering about the direction we need to go. I like that. I think that really makes us healthy. They always say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Well, by fighting internally within the Republican Party as a primary, I think is a very healthy thing for us because that makes us discuss ideas. That makes us think about our vision, think about our ideas, and think about our philosophies and defend them. And then actually add more better ideas to them as well. The Democrats, they usually don't do that, especially on federal elections. Democrats hate debates. They hate arguing. They hate it because they're supposed to be walk in line, toe-to-toe, and just whatever comes down with their marching orders, they just accept it and just go about their business. They are truly the drones and the trolls that do not think for themselves as liberal progressives. They truly don't. They don't like to debate because they're in unison. They like to agree with one another nonstop. They don't like to have any type of bickering within their own party. Republicans love it, and that's a good thing. Let them beat each other up a little bit. Let them get some black eyes from their own side. Let them see what their toughness is really like, and then see if they're able to take from that and then walk in to the ring with the Republicans in the general election. It's almost like a boxing match to where you have to do the undercard fight before you even go to the main fight of the night. And I like it because it really tests your strength and your durability to see if you're actually ready for leadership like the governorship. Lots more coming up. Stay here. This is The Voice of Reason.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into the Voice of Reason, wrapping up hour number 1, having too much fun every single day. That's the way we roll, and I want to hear from you as well. I'm really curious about what the mentality of the voters are going to be like this session, this round for the midterm elections. I'm really curious to see what they're going to do because we go through phases. Sometimes we're really angry. Sometimes we're really motivated. Sometimes we're really excited. Sometimes we're really upset. Sometimes we just don't care. And we always go through these phases. Now, we talked yesterday with one of the one of the Republican candidates for the 2nd Congressional District is Congresswoman Lynn Jenkins is retiring, stepping down. And we talked with Steve Watkins yesterday, and it was a great interview. We really appreciate him coming down and chatting with us in studio for an hour. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed chatting with him. And he had mentioned something about how people today don't want confrontation. How they really don't want the conflict when it comes to the campaigns. They want someone that's a little more easy, go along to get along kind. And it really made me start thinking about something. And is that true? Because right now we are seeing a trend of voting for people that are predominantly outsiders who aren't necessarily politicians, who maybe have not been in politics, and voting for somebody who maybe has not held any type of elected seat or office because we want to change. The politicians promise us things, and they're going to do things and they never do them. And then they do them in a long term where they try to fight, and some actually do honestly try and fight for them, and some don't. So we're trying to find really the Donald Trumps in our local elected seats, whether it's the state seats, whether it's county commission seats, whether it's federal seats in Congress. But they're trying to find those that are going to be the Donald Trump bull in the china shop, just not give a crap and just fight for whatever they need to fight for, regardless of what the political norm actually is. Now, the question is that the confrontational type that says, I don't care what you say, we're just going to get her done? Or is it the type that says, well, we need to do it in a practical kind of manner? I'm very interested to see how this is going to play out, because there are many and numerous different elections, by the way, when it comes to the legislative seats, when it comes to congressional seats at the federal level, where we're going to have to make some really difficult, tough decisions. And what is the mentality of you, the voter, right now? Is it going to be the go along, get along, and try and play nice to try and bring everybody together in the happy, nice little unison type of mentality? Or is it going to be, no, I don't care, let's just wreck it and let's just get this done because that's what we want to? And if you don't like me, then I don't really care. I mean, you got to respect that a little bit as well. When it comes to it, I can understand both sides. I mean, the go along, get along type of mentality is used in politics quite a bit in campaigns, because you're trying to bring everybody together to try and win the most amount of votes. You're trying to win your base over. You're trying to win people that may not necessarily usually vote your side on the Republican or the Democrat side. You're trying to win over independents that are very skeptical. You're trying to win over this group and that group, and you're trying to bring everybody together to vote for you with a vision that you've tried to water down enough just to be able to win over a large group. The other side of it is that you say, these are my principles, I'm very staunch on them, and they may be a little more fringe or a little more closed when it comes to the people that actually support them, because I'm not trying to widen that base, but I stick to my guns on that, and people respect me because of that fact, and therefore they respect me because I actually stand my ground. And if you don't like me and don't like my vote, then don't vote for me. And there's really two completely different 180-degree styles of actual campaigning, and I respect both of them. I understand both of them. If I ran for a seat, I kind of know which direction I would go on there, and if I worked on a campaign, which one I would enjoy working on. But I respect and understand both of those styles, because at the end of the day, you need the votes in order to win. It's just how you get there. Do you try and pander to numerous different groups and try and bring people together and play nice? Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I think it looks and depends on the different constituencies that you have. At the national level, that hasn't worked very well. John McCain tried that, and it failed miserably. Mitt Romney tried that, and it failed miserably. They both left their base of the conservative Republicans, because remember, conservatives are still the majority of the Republican Party. They really are. You talk to somebody on the street that says they're a Republican, very, 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 very few of them are saying, I'm a moderate Republican. They say you're a conservative. They usually listen to the talk radio. They usually don't follow the mainstream media. They go about their own path, and they're frustrated with the political system. The Tea Partiers, that is the heart and soul and the base still of the Republican Party. Now, there are some that say, hey, you know what, that's a little extreme, and I like to play a little bit more on the moderate side. That's fine. But that's not the majority of the Republican Party. And the ones that on the national front, at least, that run for, let's say, presidency, that try and say, yeah, you know what, conservatives, I'm going to step you aside, and I'm just expecting your vote while I go out and try and talk a little bit more moderate to other groups, that lost. Donald Trump didn't do that, and he won. There's a difference there. We got to remember that when it comes to our votes and how campaigns are actually run. Lots more coming up, hour number 2.
It's time for Reason.
5 states last night had their primaries, and the blue wave is not happening. The excitement, the activism, and right now the Republicans would have been able to maintain every single one of their seats in the 5 states, whether it was a House seat, whether it was a Senate seat, or whether it was the governorship or anything else locally that may have happened in those states. Republicans would have maintained every single one of them. Where's the blue wave, baby? Where is it? We're not seeing it.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I'll get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
That's what I'm talking about. Welcome into the Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation here in Wichita, Kansas, on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM. Simulcasting on TV, KGPT TV, channel 2610. What's up? Welcome in. Great to have you along today on a Wednesday. 316-721-8255. 877-829-92 on Talk. If you want to join in, coming up at the bottom of the hour, Jim Howell, Sedgwick County Commissioner, comes on as he usually does on a Wednesday at the bottom of this hour. In the 8 o'clock hour, Jim Barnett, GOP Gubernatorial candidate, comes on at 8 o'clock talking about the campaign, the wrap-up of the legislative session, which, by the way, I did tell you we're going to have a part 3 of our legislative recap. We are going to do so next Friday. It looks like we're going to have State Representative Joe Siwer along with Susan Humphreys in studio right now. Maybe one more. I'm reaching out and trying to see if we can't get another one, but it looks like those two right now may be available, and we're going to try and get them in doing one more day. I mean, come on, we got to do a trilogy, don't we? It's kind of the trilogy. Isn't that the thing now? Everybody has to do the trilogy of movies, trilogy of the songs, trilogy of whatever. It's the trilogy. So we're going to have the trilogy part number 3 of our legislative recap, as there are a few issues that we haven't even discussed yet on what happened with this session and the importance of it, and then going into the next session. So we will have that next Friday, but to talk about some of this as well from the standpoint of the leadership in the executive branch and who potentially could be the next governor of the state of Kansas for 2018, Jim Barnett, Republican gubernatorial candidate, will join us on the show in just an hour from now. So really looking forward to that. Until then, though, it's open lines to you. What's on your mind? We'll keep it open to you. There's a few odd stories today that I kind of wanted to talk about, not necessarily politically oriented, but I mean, that's okay. Take a break from the politics for a second. But there's some weird stories out. And I mean, I could always politicize really anything, but we need to look at how culture and society actually is. And we like to discuss these things because we make our community a better place. It's not just a political talk show, but it's a societal advancement and a societal improvement standpoint and discussion that we have on the show as well, don't we? At least we try to. I don't know. Maybe I'm just nuts and the things I say, maybe it is okay. Maybe everything that we say on the show is bogus, and there really are gender confusion of people who may not truly honestly be male or female. I don't know. Maybe everything I've learned is not quite. Maybe the reality we're living in, man, isn't the real reality. You never know. Never know. Never say never, I guess. So here's an odd story, and this is, I don't know whether to lump this up as just stupid kids. I don't know whether to lump this up as the fact that we've gone a little too far. Do you remember pulling pranks when you were a younger kid? You remember maybe the hazing, the initiatives, the initiations that you used to do? People try and join an organization. I mean, come on, you joined in the high school football team. You had to do some type of initiation that was maybe a little bit humiliating, maybe kind of funny, but it always had a purpose to it. It always had a point. If you went to college and you tried to join a fraternity or sorority, then you always had to do some type of hazing or initiation in order to get in. And sometimes it was kind of funny. Sometimes it was kind of cheesy. But we've taken it almost to the extreme, haven't we? We've taken some of these things, and maybe I want to open this up to you. If you remember your old high school senior prank, what did that used to be? Now, my senior year, we did not get to pull a senior prank because that was the year, as I had mentioned before, of the year of our high school shooting, and everything that we did, we didn't want to do in bad taste. So we didn't get to do anything, which is okay with me because I'm not a big prankster anyways. I forget on April Fool's Day, on April 1st, that it's actually April Fool's Day to pull a prank. My wife loves pulling pranks on me on April Fool's, and I forget every single year that it's April Fool's. I'm not a big prankster. I'm sarcastic, and I like to joke around, but I'm not a big prankster. I don't pull a lot of pranks. I did pull one, and my parents didn't necessarily appreciate it when I was a kid. And it was just the little ridiculous, you tie the rubber band around the little sprayer on the faucet in the sink, so that way when they turn on the faucet, the sprayer hits them. And, I got a good chuckle out of it. And my parents are like, ha, 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 don't do that again. And that was about the most pranking that I've ever done, really. But, I mean, I'm sarcastic and I'm a jokester in that sense. I just don't like to pull pranks because I don't know. I mean, maybe I see them as mean. I don't know. But there always are those groups that you do the hazing, you do the initiation, you do those. And if you remember some of the pranks that you've done, I'd love to hear from you because sometimes they are taken to the extreme or they just have no point whatsoever. And that's kind of concerning at times, too, where we're just doing things just for the sake of doing them to be stupid. And I get it that it's college. I get it that it's the young age and you got to do stupid stuff. I mean, I've done my share of stupid stuff, don't get me wrong. But this one's hat tip to Cake TV. Hazing made recent headlines from the University of Kansas. Now, University of Kansas is kind of odd on its own. No offense to anybody that's gone to the University of Kansas, but come on, you got to agree that politically there and kind of the mindset there is just a little bit off sometimes. And if you went through there, then all the power to you because you're a way stronger person than myself. But two former KU cheerleaders spoke to Cake TV about the hazing allegations that the cheer team had done a few years ago. One girl coming from Derby High School, the other one coming from Houston, came up, and the girl said that they were told to keep the story quiet about their hazing that happened just a few years ago in order to join the cheer squad. Now, I was not aware that there was any hazing that happened for the cheer squad, but I get it because you do some hazing when you go through the football team as well. But this one turned into something that was a little too extreme by blindfolding them, driving them to weird homes, making them get into the washer as it was spinning a little bit, or the clothes dryer, that sort of thing, or asking them questions and making them take articles of clothing off. And it was just a little absurd and ridiculous. I'm not going to play the audio. You can get the audio from the story on caketv.com. But the question I have, this one doesn't really bother me. What about this story, other than it's just really sad and absurd? But have we taken pranks too far? Have we taken maybe jokes too far or initiations too far? Because there always used to be a point of them. First off, they all used to happen during private organizations or private clubs. You have to go through an initiation to get through, the Masons, if you try and join the Masons. If you have a football team, the private club, I guess the cheer squad is a private club, unless you ask some of the parents, like we read the story of, that tried to complain. So that way there are no tryouts and anybody that wants to join can just join. But have we taken them too far? And does this go a little bit deeper about what's going on in society today, about where we go to the extreme to try and shame other individuals because we need to look superior to them? And if we're doing this at a younger age, what's that going to be with the mentality going into an older age? Growing up, going into the workforce, trying to start a family, raising children. I know it's all fun and games at that age to some degree, but if we're going that extreme, where did we get those types of ideas? And is this showing a deeper issue that we have? Maybe I'm looking into it a little bit too deep. But at the same time, number one, this could really mess people up mentally. And then we wonder why, I wonder why we have shootings from crazy people all the time. And we have people that are depressed and people that are mentally unstable and people that aren't quite there, or people that want to do harm to others because maybe they've been abused as a child. I mean, we saw the story about right now, Kansas. We have some work to do when it comes to the sex offenders that are migrating to the state of Kansas because we have some of the more lenient laws when it comes to actually registering sex offenders or keeping tabs on sex offenders. And we're one of the states where people are migrating from the state of Missouri to come here. And then you see a story like this where it's hazing, and we see, maybe it's the joke from the college kids, but do we have a deeper issue of not treating our peers or treating our friends or treating others with respect? We have a political environment right now to where we're debating and we don't have necessarily a dialogue or a debate. Because if you're a Trump supporter, you're automatically by default some type of white supremacist or Nazi. If you're a socialist, you're a socialist and you just believe in socialist stuff, and I don't know how to change that or how to help you with that mentality, but God bless you. If you're a bully, then all of a sudden you need to have therapy. If you've been bullied, then all of a sudden you need to be therapied and you need to go to therapy. We don't necessarily take our responsibility and our actions into our own accord and into our own personal responsibility again. So I don't know, maybe I'm looking into it a little bit too deep, but I'm curious to get your thoughts on this. And are we maybe seeing a little bit more darkness in society with this type of hazing and this type of joking to where that's accepted as the normal type of joking? There's a big difference in society between tying the rubber band around the squirt sprayer on the faucet to where you turn on the faucet and it sprays the person and that's a nice little prank and a joke, to tying people up and blindfolding them and putting them in trunks of cars and dragging them around to homes and doing ridiculous things to them and thinking that's a joke, to thinking that's funny. We have people calling in swatting calls, saying that people are being held hostage, that people have died, that there's a severe threat going on right now in a hostage situation, and a very dangerous person with weapons and trying to get law enforcement to go there. That apparently is a joke and is funny. I don't know how to change that. I don't know, other than just exposing it and us being aware that we have maybe a little bit more darker sense of humor, I guess, or that people don't necessarily value other people's lives or mental health. Other than exposing that, I really don't know how to fix that, unless it comes back down to the parents' responsibility of trying to take care of their children. Again, I don't know. Your thoughts on this? 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Is the hazing anything that we should be concerned about? Is this something that goes on more than just the cheer squads at different university private organizations? And does this show, as you know, on this show, we try to peel away the layers of the onion a little bit, and we try to look at it a little bit deeper on some of these issues. Is there a deeper meaning behind this? Is there something that we should be a little bit more concerned about because of stories like this coming out when it comes to the hazing that's gone on and some of the darkness and some of the ridiculousness that actually some organizations feel is appropriate and funny and comical when it's really just plain out sick? 316-721-8255, 18 minutes past the hour. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into the Voice of Reason. Great to have you along today. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK, 21 minutes past the hour. What's on your mind today? We'd love to hear from you. By the way, I do want to remind you again, we have it still going on. It's going to be ending soon, though, in the next couple of weeks. I want to get your opportunity. If you have a recipe, if you have something that you enjoy, maybe your friends enjoy, if you enjoy some of this stuff, it's the first annual KQAM KGSO cookbook. You can submit your recipes into the cookbook. We're going to have different restaurants and businesses submitting theirs as well, but you get a chance to submit yours just as something that maybe you make at home your family really kind of enjoys, or the people when they come over for barbecue season really kind of enjoy, and you get a chance to win something really, really cool. You get your name in a drawing when it comes to a brand new pellet grill from Wichita Tractor. WichitaTractor.com is their website, but they got a brand new pellet grill that they're going to be giving away to somebody who submits a recipe into our KQAM KGSO cookbook. All you got to do, whether it's dinners, breakfast, desserts, drinks, barbecue, doesn't matter, whatever the kind of food it may be, all you got to do is email recipe@kqamradio.com, recipe@kqamradio.com. Email us your recipe. We'll get it into the cookbook. You can put your name on there. You can not put your name on there. It doesn't really matter. You can do it anonymous if you'd like to. Really doesn't matter. But submit it, recipe@kqamradio.com. Get into the drawing to have a brand new pellet grill handed to you from Wichita Tractor. It's going to be a really cool event, really cool promotion. We are going to have, by the way, the cookbook out probably to early summer. I don't know when the date is to look forward to actually having that out. But then you can get a copy of the recipe book and see all the great recipes to have for you to be able to try, along with different businesses and sponsors that are going to be in there with their locations, maybe some coupons and certificates, all the goodies that are going to be involved with that. So it's going to be really, really cool. We'll have more information on that later. But for you to submit your recipe as we're building the cookbook, check it out, recipe@kqamradio.com. Email me that. I get those emails, by the way. It forwards right to me. So recipe@kqamradio.com. Email the recipe. We'll get yours into our cookbook. By the way, just to wrap up some of that conversation, not only with the hazing, but with the story I did kind of tease about the sex offenders, Kansas is one of those that is on the receiving end of those sex offenders coming into the state from leaving other states. And they do their homework when you're a sex offender. Now, if you've done your time, there's always that argument. If you've done your time, then how much have you done your time, and is it really worth it? And did you actually learn from it? And are you fixed? And are you better? And can you actually operate in society again? Or have you not learned it yet because you're still a sex offender and you're kind of a weirdo, and we need to be cautious of what you're doing and who you are? And that's always the ongoing question. But sex offenders are moving to the state of Kansas along with other states. But the report by the Columbia Missourian said that roughly 512 former Missouri sex offender registrants moved to Kansas in the last 2 years. 2,500 to other states in the Midwest altogether. The KBI responded to Cake News late Monday and said that that number was lower at just more than 420. But Kansas is one of the 20 different states with no sex offender residency restrictions, and that many sex offenders shop around, quote unquote, to move to states with looser restrictions. which was a concern by many parents in the Wichita area. It's alarming, quote, shocking and a scary number. Why are our laws so much different? Why are we so much more lenient? Why are they coming here? Why are the states doing that? To what are other states doing that we're not doing? What can we change, do better? That's an alarming number. It is a bit of an alarming number. I mean, we have the kids. What's the ideal mentality? And I know that a lot of progressives don't like the fact that it's, we like the whole 1950s idea of everybody working and it's the happy family. And we have, parents that are having the barbecue in the backyard and we have the kids there and we're doing all these wonderful things. And that's kind of the hope and the dream of the nice little white picket fence and the beautiful yard and that sort of thing. Can you have that if you have sex offenders moving to the state because we have looser regulations? Can we really have something like that? And if we have, over the last 2 years, according to the study of 512, the KBI says close to 420 regardless, there are multiple hundreds of people coming from Missouri to the state of Kansas because of being sex offenders and us having looser restrictions. Can you really feel like we can have the happy-go-lucky little family with the white picket fence and the barbecue in the background and the kids running around the corridor and the family and the community running around and playing with their kids and with their friends? Can they actually have that? Scott Stiles from the sports side swinging in studio for a minute. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. I can't even imagine
what
my son and my beautiful daughter-in-law and my granddaughter moving to a town and moving next to a sex offender, registered sex offender.
Sure.
And I just don't. Do you realize what's the stats of people that they lose sight of these sex offenders all the time?
Exactly, and that's why this story came out, and that's why we need to be careful, and that's why Kansas has one of the more lenient types of laws to where there is no sex offender residency restrictions on where they're allowed to move to or not allowed to move to, which is why we're seeing people migrate from Missouri to the state of Kansas. I think that needs to be addressed.
There was a buddy of mine that lived on the west side of town here, and for a random, his wife pulled it up one day. They were building a home, so they leased a home. Okay, they didn't want to move out of the school district. So they leased a home in a different area,
sure,
and drove their kids to the school system. And there was a sex offender 2 houses down from them that just close to the school.
It's concerning.
It was crazy.
Now, I think
I just don't know how that happens.
Exactly. I mean, we need to make sure kind of what they define as a quote-unquote sex offender, whether it was molesting children or whether it was raping an individual. I mean, there are some, I know some people have defined it a little bit looser to where if, even in, I don't know, I can't really come up with an example right now, but if it's outside of, going after somebody and pursuing them when they shouldn't have done so, is sort of thing, but they've maybe been with many different partners and one came out as a grudge, an ex-boyfriend or ex-girlfriend, and they kind of came after them, then they got considered a sex offender. And they've
had those cases where an 18-year-old senior in high school
exactly
is with a 15 or 16-year-old girl, and it's consensual, but yet the parents are
exactly, and they get registered as a sex offender. And I think if we make the stringent definition of the sex offender a little more defined, I think that would help as well, because sometimes that does get a little out of hand. But absolutely, it's a great point. Scott Stiles there, as he's got to swing back on his side. But no, I mean, the stories are there. We do have those in the community, in the area that I think we need to be concerned about sometimes. Just a little bit. Sometimes. That's right. It is that time, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm going to drive, and I'm going to go fast, and I'm going to turn to the left sometimes.
Call now at 721-8255 and get registered with KQAM.
There it is. All right, it is our time to get somebody registered for the Indianapolis 500 tickets. We have 2 tickets for you. The race is on Memorial Weekend, Sunday, May 27th, and it's brought to you by Auto Tech of Wichita, autotechwichita.com, along with Sig's Gourmet Meats on Facebook at Sig's Gourmet Butcher Shop. Let's get you registered. We get 5 registration, which means if you get registered, you have a 1 in 5 chance of actually winning this. We've had 2 so far, and it's time to get somebody again today. Let's do caller number 3 right now. Caller number 3 at 721-8255-721-TALK will get you registered into your drawing to win 2 tickets to the Indianapolis 500. The greatest spectacle in racing is what they call that, going up to Indianapolis Motor Speedway, going up to go enjoy, get out of town a little bit to kick off the summer celebration and enjoy one of the coolest races you'll see all year. Maybe you've been, maybe you've never been, and this would be a sight to see for sure. Let's get you registered right now for your chance to win tickets to the Indianapolis 500 at 721-8255. This is The Voice of Reason. Bottom of the hour news coming up. Stay here.
Justice in the world is not enough to buy my faith and trust. Don't make that face or won't be pleased. Don't make a sideshow of yourself.
It's time for your daily dose of reason.
Are you insane?
I don't know. Just ignore him.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into the Voice of Reason. Great to have you along today. It is, man, I know we've talked about some, kind of topics. It's not stuff that we normally like to talk about or care to talk about or things that we necessarily like to think about or focus on because it really just shows, though, by the way, that law enforcement is needed and that not necessarily everyone follows the rule of law. It has that happy little dream of the white picket fence and the family in the backyard with the barbecue and the kids and the friends and the family and all that jazz. That's just not reality as much as we'd like to see that. And you would think would be the dream for most people, not necessarily for everybody. And, whether you made mistakes or whether you intentionally want to cause harm in society, there are people that just do bad things in society. And sometimes you can help them fix that. Sometimes you just can't. And some people just want to watch the world burn. It is that time. We do this every single Wednesday at this time. As we talk with our Sedgwick County Commissioner, Mr. Jim Howell on the line with us. Jim, what's happening, my friend? Good morning.
Well, good morning, Andy. Thank you for letting me speak on the radio once again. Today we, of course, have our BOCC meeting. It starts at 9 o'clock this morning. I've told you the last few weeks we've had a pretty heavy agenda. Thankfully, I would tell you today's agenda is a little bit the opposite end of the spectrum. We have, I'd say, a very simple agenda, non-controversial. I don't expect any fireworks today that are explosive type comments. I don't want to use the word fireworks because it's not a Wichita
We can
thing,
always use controversy in there, and we can always find a way to make it controversial. You know me. Come on,
well,
Jim.
we always find a way, I'm sure. And that makes it fun for some people, but I kind of like the fact that we've got a fairly simple meeting today. We have some appointments, we have some proclamations. We're going to honor a few people, and to me, this is basically kind of like the overhead of a normal meeting.
Sure.
Basically, on the agenda, there's really just not a whole lot to talk about. Other than I just want to highlight one thing that's on our consent agenda, which I think is really cool. It goes on consent because it's considered non-controversial, but it's a resolution. Just like anything else we do on the agenda, we just don't spend a lot of time talking about it publicly. But I do want to bring it up because I think it's exciting. This is the issue of an EMS, emergency medical services post number 8 up in North Wichita. I think it's at 53rd Street and just a little bit west of I-135. But it was suggested by our staff, or I'm not sure exactly who recommended this, but it came to the commissioners, and I think there was probably fairly good support for the idea. We were going to tear that down. It was an inadequate building and that type of thing. And of course, I think that everyone, we can think of schools, everyone likes new buildings. It's fun to have a new building. But I think taxpayers don't necessarily want politicians and elected officials to constantly replace old buildings. I think that's a misunderstanding of the public. And I would credit Commissioner Rands on this case. He did lead on this issue. Rather than replacing that post by spending another $1.5 million like we usually do, we decided to go ahead and just remodel that facility and bring it up to our current standards in every way we can. It's a brick and mortar building. It's a nice building. But the total cost of that remodel is $356,000. So we're saving well over $1 million in this case. And I think that's good government.
Sure. No, I mean, any way we can save money is always a great thing, because I know not only are you working on trying to save money here and there when it comes to the small projects like that, but as you guys are getting into the summertime, I know you said it's, not a heck of a lot on the agenda for the meeting and for the potential upcoming meetings. But I mean, when we talk about the debates on the budget in the county, I'm sure that you always get some type of controversy there, and any way that we can start saving, we can start deregulating, we can at least continue that process is always a very successful conversation to have, because I know compared to some of the other counties around here, Sedgwick County does a very, very, very good job, and I give you guys huge props for the fact that we have been able to work towards deregulating certain industries. I remember last year was a lot of the plumbing regulations that happened for plumbers in the area and for businesses, for looking for economic development and letting the private sector grow, and us not trying to control that to a T when it comes to the county government.
Andy, it's been a challenge of mine that I've been trying to basically put it into one sentence. What is the definition of good government?
Mm-hmm.
I love this. It's a good school project. I would like to challenge you and listeners to come up with what is the definition in their mind of good government, because it seems like an oxymoron. The government sounds like it's a wet blanket, like it doesn't let me do what I want to do. But I would tell you that I think that as I've gotten older, I think I recognize that good government can be defined as something that actually does make our lives better and freer if it's done properly. And the things we have to have in government that I'm striving for, these are my principles. I want it to be accountable and transparent and efficient and effective. I want us to be available to the public so we can be accessible to them. I want to do things in open meetings. And so as I think about these ideas, these adjectives, we put all of our meetings on YouTube. And in fact, I don't know if I told this to you yet, I don't think I did, but we have 8 days worth of budget hearings. And if you want to see elected officials get into the weeds, now's your chance. We actually record these. These are open meetings. People are invited to be part of our room and witness it face to face. But we do record these and we put them on YouTube. And we get into the weeds. I'd say altogether we have about 20 hours worth of budget hearings. We assemble our budget. It's about $426 million of spending on the behalf of Sedgwick County citizens, providing services and quality of life things for our community. We do all kinds of things, but you can see politicians, elected officials getting into the weeds. We have really good discussion, I think, on how we spend money. We're driving towards efficiency. And again, so think about the words. We're accountable. We are transparent. We're available. People can access us. We put things on YouTube. We have everything done in an open meeting. And then talk about small government. We want to do things that government should do. We provide roads and bridges. And we do things like the things that people can't do for themselves. And so we're focused on those types of services. And then we're trying to save money, so we're efficient and doing things smartly. Overall, if you have those adjectives in play and you've got people who are dedicated to those principles, then you have what I call good government. Sure. And it's the kind of government we need to make our lives better and freer.
I'm glad you said that. And it's a really good question to ask ourselves, because if we're looking at running for an elected seat, or if we are an elected official, or if we're just a constituent thinking about the way the government should be working for us, you're right. I mean, what is the role of government and the adjectives that describe it? And you're right. I would say for me that I like my government small. And if it's small, that kind of sums it up in together, because when things are smaller, they run more efficiently. And the few programs that they are supposed to be involved in, then they are able to do a lot better. The budget's a lot smaller. The regulation's a lot lower. The control is is not necessarily there as much as where we see some other places when it's bigger. So when the government's small, it does the things it's supposed to very efficiently, and then the rest of the time it stays out of our way. So it's not that wet blanket holding us down, but it's actually allowing us to do what we need to do without interfering and putting up more red tape than what it's actually worth to actually pursue something.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the words that's on my list of adjectives, and you nailed it there. I think that sometimes the government needs to stay out of stuff. It's not the answer to every problem, and sometimes the government just makes things worse. So if we jump at things that really aren't really a government problem, we sometimes can actually make things worse by shifting responsibility to the government and to the taxpayers when it really belongs to the people as individuals. And so we have to be very, very careful not to do that. So that's one of those great adjectives. And by the way, one more thing, I want to just bring it up again, because it's always one of those things that I think that people need to recognize, that we are available. When I first got to be a commissioner, we had to have the public, if they wanted to speak to commissioners at a meeting, had to sign up 9 days early and declare a topic of what they were going to speak about. We don't do that. In fact, you can show up here and not even sign up to speak. We'll say, is anybody in the audience want to say something? Sure. You can just stand up and go to the microphone, and you've got 3 to 5 minutes. Wow. To 3 to 5 minutes to say whatever you want to say. Sure. And you can bring up issues. And so to me, the idea of accountability and availability and transparency, we're demonstrating this. Our budget. In fact, I saw some comments yesterday on one of the news articles about how Sedgwick County is so good of showing the public exactly what we do with money. It's easy to access. It's all online, and you can dig into things as deep as you want to. And it's really quite easy to navigate to see how we spend money in Sedgwick County. Sure. So again, the adjectives of accountable and transparency and availability, effectiveness and efficiency, small government. Those are all the things that make me happy to be a commissioner and be in this commission. That we're doing a good job, I think, overall. I don't want to pat myself on the back, but I'm really quite proud of Sedgwick County.
I am.
I think
we're
doing
as well.
the things.
I think you guys
we're
have done
doing things we. Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, I think you guys have done a fantastic job I've been here for 3 years now in Sedgwick County, and I think you guys have done a fantastic job. I mean, we've seen the budget slowly get a little bit smaller, try and deregulate certain things or cut some of the budget out of certain areas that we don't necessarily need to. We went back and forth a little bit when it came to the amount of debt that we're allowed to have as a county, and we went down and then we went back up a little bit, and that one was kind of an interesting debate, but that debate and that discussion's never over. So as we're talking about the budgetary stuff going into the summertime, and as you mentioned with the videos about the budgetary debates that are going on right now, then there's always ways where we can always, as you mentioned, try and refine or tune up a little bit, or try and trim or cut the fat off a little bit, or try and make a little more streamlined, and that debate's always going to be there.
Absolutely. Well, that's kind of my thinking today. There's not a whole lot more to add to the conversation other than I'm just glad to be here. It's going to be a beautiful day, I think. I'm happy to have some rain finally. That seems to be in our forecast. And things are going well up here. I think that overall things are fairly positive, and
sure.
I'm knocking on doors as a lot of other people are right now. This is that time of year. I'm talking to lots of people, and I tell you, I think people are pretty pumped about the economy, and the Wichita community is looking. I think they're excited to be a part of Wichita. By the way, Riverfest, we had a briefing yesterday on Riverfest. It's coming up here. Starting just the end of this month, and that's exciting. I mean, this is one of the top.
Can you believe it's here already?
In the nation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't believe how fast this time is going. You're right. We're excited. We're going to be broadcasting down at Riverfest as we do every year, and we're really involved in that. We are looking forward to it. But I just can't believe that we're that far into the year already. We're almost halfway through 2018. Can you believe that?
Well, I do believe it because some of us have to watch the calendar pretty closely. I'll just tell you, just think about this for a minute. It's 83 days till the primary election.
Oh, my gosh.
Days.
There it is. It's coming up.
That is not very much time. That's less than 3 months.
Yeah,
so just think about
doubt.
About 2.5 months away. Primary elections will be over. And, I anticipate, I think Republicans are going to do well this year. You made that point on your show. Republicans, I think, are doing well in most races that we've watched so far. I expect the same thing will be true here. So I think in the 83 days, a lot of the races for the next 2 to 4 years will be settled, and I'm excited to see that come upon us. And so watch the calendar closely. There's a lot going on.
That really is. Last question before we let you go. Sedgwick County Commissioner Jim Howell, but as you mentioned, kind of the low point today, which is kind of nice. It is nice to have kind of those low keys as we really start ramping up for the summertime. But as we do, not only do we talk about the budgetary debates, but also that economic development, seeing some new things coming in, the aviation industry doing well. But have you heard any rumors or tweets about anything else that potentially could be looking at coming to our area? Maybe another Tyson plant type of mentality, or any other type of industry that says maybe Sedgwick County is the place to be?
Well, I haven't heard anything quite like that. I'll tell you that we're about to do a groundbreaking on the ICM ethanol plant up in northwest Sedgwick County. That's supposed to happen here in the next few weeks. And but for me personally, in my district, I represent the southeast parts of Sedgwick County. I'm kind of excited that we have a proposal for a Kansas State University and Butler County Community College partnership that's going to bring a drone school to Sedgwick County, just east of Derby. And it's going to be, I think this is the only drone school in the state. It's called the K-State Polytechnic School. They do teach a few other skills there as well, but it basically is going to be advancing drone technology. And, being the aircraft capital of the world, this is an economic development announcement, I guess. I'm not announcing it. Someone else is going to announce it. In fact, already has been announced. It's been in the news.
Sure.
But it seems like it's moving forward, and I'm really, really pleased with that. And there are some details we have to work out to make that happen. And so I'm excited about that one. It is going to be positive for our community. Anything we do with education that allows people to get more skills and more opportunities, make more money, be more innovative, more entrepreneurial. These are the types of things we want to see in our community, and this is exactly what that is. This drone school is going to be wonderful.
How interesting.
And I'm excited for that.
I love it. Very good. That's something I wasn't aware of, so that'll be fun. A drone school. That sounds kind of fun. I may have to try and sign up for that one. Sedgwick County Commissioner Jim Howell, always a pleasure, my friend. You guys had the meeting today. Remind everybody when and where they can show up to listen to it and have their input if they'd like to do so.
Well, thanks again. It's going to be televised on Channel 8, KPTS Channel 8. It's also televised, or rebroadcast a few times on our website. I'll just let you know our website has those details as to when it's rebroadcast. But if you want to see the meeting live, we do meet up here on the third floor of the Sedgwick County Courthouse. That's the blue building on the northwest corner of Central and Main Street. The meeting starts at 9 o'clock. The public is very, very welcome to be a part of our meeting today. We do also record these meetings as well as broadcast them. We also stream them live, but we do post these meetings on YouTube on our Sedgwick County YouTube channel. So there are lots of ways to see the meetings. People need to engage and help us know what they want us to do so we can serve them better. But lots of opportunities to be a part of our meeting, either personally or after the fact. Get involved, get engaged. That's what it's all about. Sedgwick County Commissioner Jim Howell, always a pleasure, my friend. Enjoy the week. We'll chat with you again next Wednesday. Thank you, Andy. Talk to you then. Always fun. Bye. Let's go ahead and take a break here. 10 minutes at the top of the hour. Phone lines are open. We do have a caller on the line. We'll get to you as soon as we come back. This is The Voice of Reason on KQAM. Stay here.
You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into The Voice of Reason, wrapping up hour number 2. It goes by way too fast. Thanks again to Sedgwick County Commissioner Jim Howell hanging out with us for a little bit. Coming up in hour number 3, right after the top of the hour news, Republican governor candidate Jim Barnett will be joining us about the legislative session, what's happening on the campaign trail, some of the ideas, and more. Get set for that in just a few minutes. Until then, though, let's go to the phones. 316-721-8255, line number 2. Good morning. What's your name?
Hi, Andy. This is Helen.
Helen, how are you?
I'm doing just great.
Good.
Well, we are really watching the current events and compared with scriptural signs of the end-time events. We are really living in exciting times. Even like the Lord Christ said that there were prophets that wanted to live in these last days, like what we in St. Matthew 13:17. And these events going on in Jerusalem, our U.S. Embassy finally being established there, and the Palestinians and Turkey and Iran and Russia and all these people pitching a huge hissy fit. But the Lord has them all in His crosshairs. They need to read the book of Joel, especially chapter 3. And Ezekiel 38 and 39. We're really living in the most exciting times in this end-time victory generation.
Well, I do know that it was kind of fun and interesting to see many of the rabbi religious leaders from the Jewish side that once Donald Trump first off even made the claim when he first got elected, saying that he was going to move the embassy to Israel or to Jerusalem and say that Jerusalem was going to be the capital of Israel and that's the way it's going to be and we're going to make that happen. And he was very adamant about that. That first off, they were a little concerned because many presidents prior to him had said the same thing and it never happened. But they did write a letter, and it was close to, I want to say, like 80 or 100 different rabbis that wrote this letter saying that he was advancing the prophecies of what's to come later and that he was taking the next step and that we are seeing things play out right before our eyes. And he's the one that's actually allowing much of this to happen. So from the religious standpoint, many people are excited because we are moving in that sense. From the political standpoint, people are excited because it's actually finally starting to happen. So it's kind of nice.
Well, all it means is that we're closer to the second coming of the true Jesus Christ. And but beware that the Lord warns us that that at the sixth vial and sixth seal, the false Christ comes first, which is Satan the Antichrist, who comes pretending to be Christ. And the true Jesus Christ doesn't come until the seventh trump, Revelations chapter 11:15.
There it is. Well, Helen, I hate to cut you up there. We're on the hard break at the top of the hour here. Very interesting. We got a ways to go. We'll see how it all unfolds here relatively soon. But from both the religious and the political standpoint, we're seeing progress actually being made, which is a good sign.
It's time for Reason.
5 states last night had their primaries, and the blue wave is not happening. The excitement, the activism, and right now the Republicans would have been able to maintain every single one of their seats in the 5 states, whether it was a House seat, whether it was a Senate seat, or whether it was the governorship or anything else locally that may have happened in those states. Republicans would have maintained every single one of them. Where's the blue wave, baby? Where is it? We're not seeing it.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
That's what I'm talking about. Welcome into the Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation here in Wichita, Kansas, on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 of the FM side, KQAM. Simulcasting on TV, KGPT TV channel 2610. What's up? What's happening? Welcome in. It is a Wednesday morning, and we start you off better than a cup of coffee, a shot of espresso, even an energy drink. That's the way we roll, and that's the way we like to have fun today on a hashtag Freedom Loving Wednesday. Yeah, 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. The Facebook Live feed is up and rolling as well. Check it out, facebook.com/1480 KQAM. Like it, share it, leave a comment, ask a question. Let's blow it up. Let's break the algorithm that prohibits and restricts conservative messages on social media. We had some great guests, great conversation so far today. Let's keep it rolling as we are excited to have back on the show. It's been a while since we've chatted with him. He is a Republican gubernatorial candidate for the state of Kansas 2018. Mr. Jim Barnett is on the line with us. Jim, how are you, my friend?
Doing great. Great to be back with you. Thank you.
I appreciate very much you coming back on. How's the campaign going so far? It's been a little bit since we chatted.
It has been going well. You know, the best part of campaigning is traveling the state, meeting the great people of Kansas, and seeing the beauty of the state as well. So we're having fun and having a lot of good conversations.
What's been some of the bigger issues when you go and talk to people and you meet with people and knock on the doors and you chat with voters and constituents? What's been some of the bigger issues when you chat with them that they've been concerned about? Has it been maybe the economy or some of the agricultural issues or education? What's been the hot topic that you've heard lately?
Well, you've hit on all of them, but first of all, economic growth. You know, our state still stagnates compared to others. So how we can grow our economy is a huge issue of concern for all. Ties into our kids' future, and how we can, attract and retain young people in our state. Jobs, big part of that. Healthcare, big, of course, and particularly in rural Kansas, how do we keep our hospitals open? Because they're struggling, and if you lose your hospitals, it's like losing your school. Education, funding, finance, huge. Getting out of court, we hopefully will have some time to talk about that today, because that's a big issue as we travel around as well. So those are the big ones. Ag and livestock, of course, we're glad to see some rain down in southeast Kansas. Yesterday had 2.5 inches of rain, and everybody had a big smile.
Wow, I can only imagine. Yeah, they're soaking that one up. We did get some big rain here a week or so ago, and we had over an inch of rain, and it was gone. We didn't see any standing water the next day. It was soaked up. It was gone because I think the soil desperately loved that, and it just ate it up.
That's right. A lot of empty ponds around the state as well.
No doubt. Well, let's get into some of those issues because we want to make sure that people who are the issues that they are very concerned about, that we do address those and we want to fix those. Number one, you mentioned a lot of the hospitals. The rural hospitals have been with a threat of being shut down or some of them closing up, and that would be detrimental to a lot of different communities. How do we go about fixing that from your perspective? What do you want to see? What do you want to do? And how do we maintain our healthcare system in the state of Kansas?
The number one thing that the rural hospitals ask for is the expansion of Medicaid. This is what both Brownback and Colyer have blocked repeatedly. But for them to keep their doors open, they need that. We're sending our tax dollars out of state, Andy. Tax dollars we pay go to other states. We've sent out over $2 billion worth. And yet, hospitals have become the bank for the uninsured, but they can't stay open if they're not solvent, just like a bank can't stay open if it is not solvent. So the number one thing that the hospitals want is Medicaid expansion to help them stay afloat and take care of all of the people that show up with the uninsured. But there are other concerns, believe me. The Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare as you know it, initially helped more people get insured, but after a bit of time, everybody's deductibles went up, $6,000, $7,000, $10,000, $12,000 deductible. So basically, people with Obamacare-type insurance are now essentially uninsured because they don't have that money for the deductible. So there are insurance issues, and then workforce is the other thing. Hospitals, if they lose their doctor, they're going to really be in big trouble. It's not just doctors, though, but other workforce issues. So as governor, the things that I need to focus on is how to help keep our hospitals solvent, which are payment issues, but also workforce issues.
There's been a big discussion, and I'm glad you brought up the Medicaid expansion because that has been a hotly contested issue in the state of Kansas. I know it was tried numerous times in the legislature this year, and it didn't go anywhere. But there's been a big division between the either expanding the Medicaid program or doing the CanCare 2.0 and improving the current program that we have. From your perspective, which way would be better to go? Would it be, as you mentioned, to expand the program or to do the 2.0 and try and make it a little more efficient?
Well, both need work, and we should not be going to CanCare 2.0 when CanCare 1.0 is a wreck. You know, the system is a failed system with people who are put on hold for hours trying to get through. It involves elder care and nursing home care. We have nursing homes that won't take CanCare or Medicaid now because they're not going to get paid at all or not get paid enough. Out in Tribune, Kansas, a couple spent 17 months in the nursing home. The family did everything they could to, put all the paperwork in, and CanCare, Medicaid denied, and then by law you have to restart. So deny, restart, deny, restart. The woman died after 17 months, and the facility had no payment. And after a person dies, if they're not qualified, the facility gets no money. So they ate that 17 months. Facilities can't stay open. So if any of your listeners have concern about what's going on with senior citizens in this state, you should be very concerned about the broken system we have. We shouldn't be going to 2.0. I want to say I know a little bit more about that. This is a for-profit system. So Governor Colyer gave the keys away from the state to 3 for-profit organizations. One of them is United Healthcare. The last quoted CEO salary for United Healthcare was over $66 million. That was last published. So we're sending 8% profit off the top for CanCare in Kansas out of state, plus administration costs, to a CEO who makes over $66 million. Those dollars should be in Kansas, but they're not. So our hospitals are struggling, patients aren't getting services, and we're sending for-profit money to $66 million to the salary of United Healthcare. That's how broken the system is.
Mm-hmm. If we end up expanding a Medicaid program, which many have, talks about doing so, and whether it's going to be able to happen next session or not, I'm sure it's going to be brought back in the legislative session 2019. If we expand it financially, what could it look like for the state? Would we be paying for a lot of that? Would the federal government cover for a lot of the expansion? I know with them repealing part of the individual mandate, potentially repealing much of Obamacare at the federal level, what could a Medicaid expansion program look like for the state of Kansas?
That's a great question, Andy. And first of all, almost all of that is paid for by the federal government. But let me qualify that. We are the federal government, okay? We all pay taxes. So I don't want you to think that I don't understand that.
Sure.
So we all pay for that eventually. But it's mainly federal dollars. And what we're doing right now is we're spending our taxpayer dollars for other states. We're getting nothing out of it. Long term, I think it's probably going to be a wash, because if you look at the economic activity that hospitals bring to communities, it's tremendous. For a lot of the smaller communities, they're either number one or number two employer. And if you knock out those jobs, then you look at the economic impact of that, where people no longer are employed, they're not paying taxes, they're not owning homes, paying property taxes, buying goods in the area. So the economic loss is significant. So if we expand Medicaid, I think it at least comes out to a wash as a state, if not a benefit. If you look at why businesses or families would want to come to a community to live, to raise a family, to work, well, one of the main reasons is healthcare access. If we don't have that, we lose our competitive edge as a state.
Mm-hmm. Let's shift gears a little bit and let's go to the education, because as you mentioned, it's another huge issue, probably one of the most important issues, along with the healthcare in the state of Kansas. And the legislatures this year ended up passing a bill expanding the educational funding for close to $540 million over the next few years, cumulatively looking closer to $1 billion plus when we really add it all up. Governor Colyer made the comment that with this one, he was excited to sign this one because he said it did put stipulations on to try and raise the quality up, raise some standards up, has some direction on where it needs to go, and hopefully be able to start making things improve a little bit better. But many people are saying that we missed the entire boat on this one, because even though we talked about addressing it, we did not see a constitutional amendment come out for limiting the Supreme Court or trying to stop any type of future litigation coming out of the Supreme Court. And we could potentially see a special session be called by the Supreme Court later on this year. What was your take on the whole educational debate from the legislation this year, and how do we move forward from here on out?
Well, great questions. First of all, the legislature did the heavy lifting. Governor Colyer takes credit and has showed up for a lot of photo ops, but the legislature did the heavy lifting on this. But I am very doubtful, highly doubtful this keeps us out of court, highly doubtful this satisfies what are constitutional issues right now. The legislature actually in 2014 lost this case when they codified what are called Rose Standards, and the governor signed it, Governor Brownback at that time. But this case was lost a long time ago, and then the legislature only caused more harm because they commissioned a study out of Texas that said it's not $500 or $600 million that you need. The study showed it's $2.1 billion that we need. So the state legislature actually just created more trouble for themselves than what could have been helped. So Andy, the real question is, how do we get out of court? That's really what we have to decide. Now, if we want to have a constitutional amendment, that's the right of the legislature and the right of the people. They obviously didn't have the votes to pass it. They haven't had that for years. So on a practical basis, I think voters need to be asking, what can the next governor of Kansas do? And what we need to do are rewrite standards that are pertinent and measurable to our kids in this century. We're using standards from the 1980s from Kentucky, and we need standards that are pertinent to 2018 to our children in Kansas. And that's what I will do as governor, is bring the right people to the table. And we need someone who's got the ability to convene and break down those barriers to make that happen. That's the only way I think that we're going to break this cycle. And if we don't have a governor who understands that and is willing to lead on that and can get along with people to make that happen, it won't happen. We'll be right back in court. So the bill passed. I'm not going to predict what the Supreme Court will do. I tell my patients, I practice medicine, I tell my patients my crystal ball broke a long time ago. I'm not going to predict what the Supreme Court will do, but it is my opinion that this will not long-term hold up, and I think we'll be right back in court with what we did.
Mm-hmm. Well, and to go along with that, let's take it to the next step when it comes to taxes. I mean, we increased spending at the state legislative level this year by $1 billion total over the next couple of years, and we didn't increase any type of taxes. We even fought, which was, I thought, a good thing. We didn't go anywhere with it, but being able to itemize and do itemization deductions on our state taxes like we do at the federal level, that one's being blocked in the House. But we increased spending without increasing any type of taxes. Do you foresee potential tax increases next session with a new legislature after the midterm elections and potentially with a new governor?
Yeah, this sounds very familiar, doesn't it? I mean, we did this before with the previous Brownback-Colyer administration. Spent more money than we were taking in, and of course it resulted in multiple tax increases, including sales tax and including property tax, which is sort of the hidden tax that the state doesn't raise, but it gets shifted back to local units of government, to your city and county level. So all of our listeners here had their property taxes increased because the state couldn't balance their budget long term. So I don't know if we get through or not, but it looks to me like we're headed right back where we were with the Brownback years of spending more money than we were taking in. So the only answer to this, Andy, long term, is economic growth. If we don't grow the state's economy, we're all screwed. We're not going to have enough money for all of our wants, whether it be building roads or schools or taking care of people's health care needs. So economic growth is the key. And I just read yesterday the headline about what happened in Wichita with Cargill. Mm-hmm. And the lack of oversight, the lack of accountability that we had with the Brownback-Colyer years, and now Governor Colyer still supports what the Secretary of Commerce is doing. But this is the corporate crack, as it's been appropriately called. We're giving away taxpayer money without any oversight, same as we're doing with the United Healthcare CEO's salary of $66 million. We have no direction in this state or no leadership for economic growth. The last 7 years, we saw just a downward trend. We've heard it from Wichita, many voices, including, from your program. The state of Kansas is falling behind. So we need a governor who's going to focus on economic growth. If we don't have that, we're going to be looking at more and more tax increases. And more and more, in my opinion, more and more stagnation for the state.
Sure. And I know you focus quite a bit on your campaign with that economic development, being able to work on that. But talk again briefly in a minute or so about what your plan is for that when it comes to, working with the higher education programs to be able to train many of our workers to get into industries that we need, being able to improve new diverse industries coming into the state. What can we do as a state of Kansas?
Here are the four keys. First of all, what businesses told me over and over again that they need to succeed. The following items: workforce training, infrastructure, education, healthcare, quality of life issues. That's what makes people either decide to come or not to come to Kansas or stay. The next governor's got to reestablish and recreate all of those basic elements. That's going to take a decade to a generation, but we've got to elect a governor who will provide the leadership and actually help the state pivot. Second key is this. We're very different regionally. So Wichita is a lot different than Southwest Kansas, which is a lot different than Southeast Kansas, which is a lot different than Johnson County. The last time we approached economic development on a regional basis was when Bill Graves was governor. So we need a governor who understands that and also respects local control. 95% of economic development is local. Where that goes wrong is Tonganoxie, where they developed a Tyson chicken plan behind closed doors. The community found out about it and erupted, so we have to respect local control. Third issue is this. We used to think the state was just ag and oil and aviation. Those are huge industries, but we have so many more opportunities for economic growth if we would look at our assets on a regional basis and bring men and women together with their entrepreneurial spirit and their capital and find out what they need to grow, and then as a state help supply that, whether it be workforce or workforce training. The fourth key, to back to your original question, is this. We need a new relationship between business and education so we can train that workforce. Welders, plumbers, electricians, carpenters, wind turbine technicians, nurses. The list is long. But what we've been doing is fighting in court. We need to be working together, and we need a governor who will convene and break down those barriers to make that happen. So workforce training, we have 50,000 open jobs, and really we have failed in Kansas to train our workforce like we need it.
Jim Barnett, Republican candidate for the governorship 2018. BarnettForKansas.com is the website, BarnettForKansas.com. Where are you at right now on the campaign trail? Where can people see you in the next few days and weeks if you're out and about traveling and talking to people?
Well, we traverse the state a lot. Right now, as we speak, I am in Topeka. I still practice a day or two a week, just for my sanity and my staff's sanity as well, but very much like to stay connected with patients. And, I'm not a politician, Andy. I'm a farm kid and a physician at heart. So whether you like it or not, that's who I am. But I think that's the kind of person the state is ready to look for. We just finished a little bit of a tour down in Southeast Kansas. Love to go into communities and just get a feel. So went to Fredonia, to the sale barn of all places. Had a great time. If you want some mountain oysters, that's a good place to go. They also have other food down there. Got to meet with producers and, of course, buyers and sellers of ag. Visited the hospital, visited the library, just to get to know people and talk to people. Today we're headed off to Wamego. We kind of like to do that same thing. We'll be headed out west again, and frankly, I would have to look at my phone to know what my calendar is to tell you just where I will be. But we have been as far as Elkhart in the southwest. We've been up to St. Francis in the northwest, where you can see Colorado, Nebraska. We've been to Troy in northeast Kansas, where the glacial hills are, and down to Galena in southeast Kansas, where Route 66 is. So that gives you a feel of how much we're traveling the state.
All over the place. Well, next time you come to the Wichita area here, we'd love to get you in studio and chat with you again here some more.
I would welcome that. Would love to do that. Thank you.
Very good. Always a pleasure. Jim Barnett, Republican candidate for the governor 2018. BarnettForKansas.com is the website. Jim, good luck to you, my friend. We'll chat again real soon.
Thanks. Have a great day.
You as well. Always a pleasure there. 25 minutes past the hour. We'll take a break, open up lines to you. It's open lines for the rest of the show. This is the Voice of Reason on KQAM. Stay here.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back in. 29 minutes past the hour. Went a little long in that last segment. Bottom of the hour news coming up in just a second. We got some calls on the line. Don't go anywhere. I want to start off the next segment with you. Also, we'll talk about the interview, talk about some of the issues, and how we move forward as a state in the state of Kansas. I do appreciate Jim Barnett, though, coming on the show. We always love chatting with all the candidates. We'll get to all of them back on here relatively soon. With him, we just talked with Ken Seltzer a couple of weeks ago. We'll get him back on as well, along with Chris Kobach and other Republican candidates. So, We'll try and get the Democrats on, too. I don't know if they will or not. We'll reach out to them and see if they'll come on. At least extend the offer. Hey, you know me. I play nice. When they come on as a guest, I don't grill them. I don't attack. I don't go on the vicious, beady-eyed, gnarly teeth kind of thing. I'm a nice civil guy, and I'll let you have your say. I may disagree with you, but we'll have some fun with it. So we'll reach out to some of the Democrat candidates as well. Open line to you when we come back. Bottom of the hour news. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay right here.
'Cause the days were more the same. When I
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Oh, yeah, making it happen today. It is a Wednesday. Hashtag Freedom Loving Wednesday. The way we roll today, one of the greatest days of the entire week. There are 5 days of the work week that are the greatest days of the week. You can go ahead and name them. I know not everybody sees it that way, but you know what? I'm the eternal optimist. Is that the day today?
Andy's optimism of the day.
All right, I'm ready.
There you go. Eternal optimism there. All 5 days of the work week are the greatest days of the entire week, except for the weekend, which even better than the 5 previous days right there. There you go. Your eternal optimism of the day. 316-721-8255. 316-721-TALK. Phones are lighting up, and it is open line to you for the last half hour of the program. So let's go right to that. Shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
Hey, good morning, sir. It's Drew.
Drew, how are you, sir?
Amazing.
Good.
Amazing. Hey, I wanted to thank you for getting Jim Barnett on.
Oh, yeah. I want to talk to all the candidates. Absolutely.
Well, this was special because normally one has to go to D.C. and talk to a progressive to get the level of socialist snake oil, half-truths, and double talk that we just heard.
Well, now look, there are many things that he said that I disagree with, but, I want him to get his agenda out there and idea out there so that way you, the voters, can decide on who you want to support, not support.
Oh, and I want to get out there what he has to say, too, because I want the state to hear exactly what a progressive socialist he is. Because, if you go through and you listen, go back and I invite people to go back and listen critically to the podcast today to what he had to say, because nearly everything he had to say was that the state is the answer, the government is the answer. And those things that he couldn't exactly say that, he had to go ahead and make up some facts about, or some half facts about. And you look at, just as this one example, look at how he described the expansion of Medicare and social medicine within the state. Where we are now, effectively, according to Mr. Barnett, going to have state-subsidized towns, because that is the main employer, government-subsidized towns, but because that's the main employer of that area, and that's just the way it works. Because
here's my take on Medicaid expansion, and we've talked about this many times on the show before, and as you know, I'm not a fan of expanding Medicaid, and I'm glad that it didn't go through this year, and this is where I would disagree with Jim Barnett, and I would disagree in the sense that Medicaid expansion, I don't know would be covered. I don't think would be covered by the federal government, because we did repeal Obamacare. We repealed the individual mandate, and therefore the government has no obligation in any way, shape, or form to send us more money. Now, Jim is right when he says that our taxpayer money is going to subsidize other states with their Medicaid expansion, which is heartbreaking because the federal government is taking our money from all over the country, including us here in Kansas, taking it and then sending it off to other states for their programs. And his argument was, well, if they're going to do that, then we should get a chunk of our own taxpayer money back here in our state. And I understand that mentality, but at the same time, number one, I don't like to increase government programs, so I don't support that. Number two, there's no obligation that if we said we're going to expand our program, that the federal government now, after repealing of the individual mandate to some degree and starting to move against the Obamacare direction, which he did say he was against Obamacare, but the Medicaid expansion is part of the Obamacare mentality of wanting to expand that government program. And if we do that, we could be left with close to from what the Kansas Policy Institute has come out with close to a $2 billion price tag on that. The right now, with everything else, and especially after increasing our spending by over $1 billion in this last session alone without compensating it with more revenue somewhere, then we're going to be stuck in another financial bind, and I don't want to see that come out. The other aspect of this is when it came to the rural hospitals, and I know the big one was the one up in, Topeka or Tonganoxie or one of those places. Last year, as they had said that they would shut down unless we expanded Medicaid, and that was the big push to be able to help those, was that they came out and their board admitted that expansion of Medicaid would not actually solve the Medicaid or the hospital problem at all, that would be a small portion, but out of the budget that they need, that would only help close to 10 to 20% of what they were actually looking for. So if we expanded Medicaid, yeah, it could potentially give, throw the bone to some of the rural hospitals, but it wouldn't actually solve the issues that they're facing right now in trying to remain open.
The general idea in business is that, you set your price for what the market can bear, and when you have the government as your person paying the bill, well, there is an unlimited bottom to that purse. That's part of why we've seen medicine and drugs, the cost of those go through the roof, is because literally the government will pay whatever the market demands, because that's what it's healthcare, it's your life we're talking about. But that's one of the great fallacies. Medicare only pays 1/3 to 2/3 of what a insurance claim will, and so these little towns who make that claim, or these socialist progressive politicians who tell us that the slyly worded Medicare expansion, which is what they politely say Obamacare in Republican company, is going to fix things, is not. It's an allocation of a redistribution and allocation of funds, and it's propping up a system that is already failing because those prices are high because of Medicare. I tell you, if you liked Obamacare, if you like to see your money's taken and given to somebody else, if you like to go ahead and hear the half-truths that you heard earlier today, vote for Jim Barnett. You'll get a whole 4 years of them.
Drew, I appreciate the phone call, my friend, very much. 316-721-8255. Look, I mean, that is one issue where I would disagree with Jim Barnett very much so on. I would disagree. I don't agree with that stance and position. I do agree with some of the other things that he does talk about. And again, it's up to you to decide. That's why I want to get all of them on, whether we agree or disagree, whether we like stances, not like stances. My job is to get that information out there. And I do really appreciate Jim Barnett coming on the show, even though we may disagree on that issue. I do agree with the stances when it comes to the constitutional amendment. I mean, he is in support of that, and he's done a very good job, in my opinion, with his ideas on economic development and working with some of the higher education and so on and so forth. So you're going to agree on things and disagree on things. That's for you, the voter, to decide. But you're right. When it came to the Medicaid, and I had to ask him about that, just financially, what would we look like? And he had mentioned that, we're going to get the money from the federal government. The question is, what if we don't? What if we don't? We have a more Republican/conservative leaning government at the federal level, a little bit, to where we are looking to try and start limiting some of the social programs. We're starting to start cutting back on some of the social programs. We're seeing it in the Farm Bill with the SNAP program and the WIC program on trying to limit some of that. We talked with Congressman Ron Estes and some of the SNAP program to where there's billions of dollars just sitting there in the budget that's not even being used. It's just sitting there in the department, just sitting there. The government doesn't need money just sitting there. It doesn't need it in any way, shape, but when you talk about cutting that, saying, you know what, we don't need that, we're going to go ahead and start trimming that because people are going back to work, the economy is beginning to do better, and we don't need as much money going into a social program to uphold individuals that way, whether temporary or long-term or permanently, whatever the case may be. We don't need that. Then the progressives panic. Oh, my God! And they throw a fit about it, the fact that we're cutting the social, but we are. And we're not necessarily even cutting, but we're just slowing the growth of, which to them they see as a cut. We see as a long way to go until we actually see a cut, but we're slowing the growth of some of these social programs. But it's good that we're moving in that direction. But do you think that there would be a federal government in this administration right now, and especially going into a midterm, where, again, I stand firm on my stance where I do not see a blue wave happening. I do not see it. I see a Republican sweep continuing on. Not only Republicans, but conservatives that are getting into the federal legislature and starting to work on things dramatically well. I see positive things happening there. If we have more states, whether it's Kansas or anywhere in the country, say, you know what, I believe that I'm going to go ahead and expand my Medicaid program and I'm going to look for federal aid in order to make that happen, what do you think they're going to say? As we're trying to limit some of these social programs with a Republican majority in both chambers and a Republican presidency, what do you think is going to happen? Now, there are some on the Republican side that are very very much in favor of the expansion of Medicaid. Jim Barnett being one here. We look at someone like John Kasich in Ohio, where 33% of his entire state population is dependent on his Medicaid program, and he's expanded it very much so. And he loves it, and he thinks he's flourishing and doing very well with it. We see some of the other senators at the federal level that have voted against the repealing of Obamacare because they like it, because they benefit from it in their states. So don't get me wrong, this is not just a Republican-Democrat argument. This is a battle even within the Republican Party, because there are many in the Republican Party that do support that expansion of Medicaid in their home states, in their regions, in their constituencies. And the way I see it is because right now they become too dependent on it. They don't know how to wean themselves off of kind of the teenager that's having a hard time. They want to be independent. They want to flourish. They want to go out about themselves. They want to go do their own thing. They want to live free and go make their own decisions, but they don't quite have the resources and tools to yet go do so. So they come back home every night to their parents and live under the home. And then they try and rebel because they want to be independent. And the parents say, as long as you live under my roof, then you're going to live by my rules. And they don't like that. So they try and rebel, and they go out and they try and find a way to go live free and go do their own thing. And they want to so bad and desperately, but at the same time, they can't quite yet because they're not quite ready yet. So they come back home at night and they live by the rules under the house of the parents. Remember those arguments? Remember those fights? That right there are the states run by Republicans that have expanded a Medicaid program. That is the example of a state run by Republicans that has expanded a social government program like that. Because they have expanded it to where now the government, the federal government, are now the parents that control what they do in that state. They tell them what to do. And if the state does something that they don't like, what do? Oh, guess what? We're going to threaten to cut off your social program funding. We're going to threaten to cut off your Medicaid funding. Even if we do, let's say we do get the money in the state of Kansas, is it worth it? Is it worth really giving up many of our states' rights to allow the federal government dictate what kind of policies we implement here? If we, let's say the next election that we had many progressives that ended up taking over, let's say the midterm elections do swing with a blue wave. Let's see that in 2020 we do get a Democratic president and they end up beating Donald Trump. Let's just say, for an example, in a hypothetical situation right now, that happens. We've expanded Medicaid in the state of Kansas. We want to try and re-implement the Second Amendment Protection Act. We want to try and continue to defend our pro-life advocacy that we've had here in the state. We want to try and protect the freedom of choice when it comes to like our foster care or adoption agencies for the LGBTQ community. We do these things in the state because we are a predominantly traditionalist, religious, conservative state. We do all these things, but we've also expanded Medicaid. What do you think the federal government would do? You know what, Candace, we don't like what you guys are doing there. You are discriminatory against the LGBTQ community. The ACLU has filed a lawsuit against you. We don't like what you're doing with the lack of environmental protection agency regulations you have in your state. We don't like the fact that you're not giving women the right to choose when it comes to Planned Parenthood, and you guys have tried to fight Planned Parenthood and the abortion issue in the state of Kansas. You know what? You guys better straighten up, or else we will pull your funding from Medicaid. You guys will go into financial ruins as a state because you can't afford a $2 billion ticket, and you just better do what we tell you to. Because power and because money given by somebody else to you comes with responsibility and that control over you. Every single time. There's no way or abouts about it. The goal is, as a conservative state, as a traditionalist state, is to limit the authority that the federal government has over us by accepting as least amount of aid from the federal government as we possibly can. Now, obviously, that's never going to happen by becoming completely 100% independent. It's not going to happen. It's just not reality. But I don't know. I just can't see, in my mind, I can't support an idea like that. I don't like it. I've never been an advocate of it, and I will continue to not be a fan of an expansion of a government program with money coming in or out, or whether it's us or whether it's the federal government funding it, whether we fund it ourselves, which we can't afford, or the federal government funds us and they control us. I'm just not a fan of that. Your thoughts on this? 316-721-8255. Let's go to the phones. Line number 2. Good morning. What's your name?
Sue.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
Hey, living the dream every day.
Well, I agree with you pretty much on what you said here. I'm just wondering, we've got this giant lottery slush fund that's supposed to be used for economic development, whatever. I've heard all these different things about what it's supposed to do,
Sure.
And yet we never see any benefit from the money, and we hear about all the misappropriations every few years, whatever. I'm thinking, why do we keep hearing this argument we need to expand Medicaid to prop up rural hospitals? Makes no sense to me at all. It's like they're trying to pull at the heartstrings. Why isn't that considered an economic development thing? Why can't these hospitals apply for grant money from the lottery fund to help them if they're having a hard time and they're serving a community that is in a certain socioeconomic level that needs help from the government? Because to me, that would be a much better use of the billions of dollars flowing in from the lottery tickets and the casinos and everything else to try and help existing facilities that are in the state that need a little bit of help with a community that can't afford to prop it up.
Sure. That's a really great point. And I mean, look, hospitals should be kind of their own private entities, which they are to some degree. I mean, they're regulated by the government to make sure the healthcare's done the right way, but they're really kind of their private owned entities. And to make them more public with more federal or state money coming into them kind of takes away from that privatization that used to be privatized. If we look all the way back when the churches really began to run many of the hospitals, which is why many of them are St. Francis and St. this and St. that, because many of them are still run by many of the Catholic organizations. So you're right, apply for grants to be able to hype them up. And we also have to admit to the fact that healthcare itself, just the industry itself, is changing and evolving, and whether we go towards a more socialized universal healthcare system or whether we go towards a more of a privatized healthcare system. I know some of the clinics in the Wichita area are making big news because they don't accept insurance. They kind of do the private club membership sort of thing where you pay the monthly membership and then you get to go in and actually get your free screenings and all that good jazz. And the hospitals that are trying to stick to the old traditional ways, many of them are the ones that are struggling and suffering. I mean, the studies that have been done, that the same number percentage-wise of hospitals are closing in states that haven't expanded Medicaid and that have expanded Medicaid. So I don't think the expansion of Medicaid one way or another are really going to be the saving grace for many of these hospitals.
Oh, I agree. I agree with you 100% on that. And I do think that they need to be private entities. But once again, if the argument that Jim Barnett is making is that we need to help make sure that we have rural hospitals to meet the needs of these people, which generally are probably going to be in a lower economic status than the city people, just say up around Kansas City or in
Sure.
East Wichita or whatever,
Sure.
then to me it makes a whole lot more sense for the state to look at coming up with some type of an aid situation for them with money that's just sitting there and that has no accountability. Let's start having some accountability and let's start seeing some benefit from all that money, because it sure isn't just bringing the jobs in droves to Kansas like it was supposed to.
Because that hasn't happened.
No, it hasn't.
You're right.
So,
No, you're
okay.
right. Instead of trying saying, you know what, instead of expanding, which I still don't understand it. We admit that CanCare has its failures and has its faults and has some issues, so we want to expand the program to make it bigger so more people are covered under a program that's not taking care of the ones that are on it right now. To me, I don't understand. So you're right, instead of expanding it, let's find the allotted funds and direct it specifically towards them in the state budget that's already there, rather than trying to increase more revenue to them, and actually find ways to try and fix them from that sense, rather than just say, let's expand programs and find revenue from there on out.
Exactly. And it's the same old socialist thing that somehow this money is just manna from heaven coming from the federal government. We all know it's not. It's our tax dollars. It's other people's tax dollars from around the country. It's a redistribution of wealth. And, it's just crazy. It's crazy to think that somehow that's going to make things better. In the end, anybody who's old enough to have been around a while realizes that money from the government is never a good thing. It's always a downside. It's always going to have strings attached, and it's always going to come and go depending on who's in power and whether they agree with your state or not, like you just said earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So, I can't seem to get anybody in state government to really address this lottery fund situation. And I think that maybe we have a good opportunity with this gubernatorial race this year to bring it up. And I've emailed the different candidates and said, we need to talk about this. We need to have a conversation about the amount of money that's coming in now that we've added casinos, and what's actually happening with it when we've got problems with everybody yelling there's not enough money for social programs, there's not enough money for schools, there's not enough money for this, for that, for capers, for state employees, whatever you want to say. And yet we have all this money sitting there, and we never actually really get any reports about what good it's doing anybody. I'm not a big fan of gambling anyway, but if it's there and the money's going to be coming in like this, we need to do something that's beneficial to everybody with it, I think.
That's a great point, Sue. I love it. Thanks for the call. Great, really great points. I completely agree. I think that could definitely be a conversation. I'm glad that you're sending that message out to many of the candidates, hopefully on both sides of the aisle, so we can have that discussion both in the primaries and going into the general election, along with the legislative session next year. It's going to be a hot issue, especially with the both the lottery tickets, the gambling issue, and now potentially when it comes to the sports gambling as well. Got to take a break, wrap up the show today. One more break. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
That wraps up the show today. It's gone by way too fast. We always appreciate all the phone calls, all the discussion. We just have more fun than we're supposed to on a daily basis because that's the way we roll as we try and, there we go. Let's try and get that going the way we're supposed to. This is The Voice of Reason. Thanks again to all the phone calls. We'll be back tomorrow for a Thursday. Lots coming up tomorrow as we have some really big guests, some really great discussions as we continue to do so every single day. Thanks again to Jim Barnett, Republican candidate. The podcast will be up here shortly. You can listen to that. Also, go to kqamradio.com. You can find the entire show lineup there for The Voice of Reason right at kqamradio.com.